Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the OK Preps Extra podcast. I'm Patrick Prince, joined as always by our high school sports editor, Barry Lewis. Barry, always good to be with you. And the news gods are shining on us today with a lot of moving parts on the basketball beat. So let's kind of jump in there. Let's start with Lee Mayberry. The Mayberry name obviously well known in the area, not only because of Lee, but because of his five daughters' success. But now he's taking his first head coaching job at a high school in Oklahoma, Cassia Hall. What are your thoughts on that?
But that's quite a impressive hire by Cassia Hall. And it'll be interesting because this is going to be Lee's done just about everything you can do in basketball. Play in the Final Four, be the state player of the year, Tulsa World State Player of the Year, win a high school state championship as a player, play 7 years in the NBA, but he hasn't been a high school head coach before. So, and he's been a college assistant recently 4 years on the staff at ORU. Prior to that, he had been 3 years as an Arkansas men's assistant. A year in between was spent at Watson Chapel, a high school in Arkansas, as a boys assistant. So that's his high school coaching experience. As far as a high school, he's coached AAU teams in the past, but so this will be a new experience for Lee, and it's going to be very interesting to see what he can do with the Cassia Hall program. Lee he's also going to be the dean of students, so he's going to have a couple of new adventures and experiences at Cassia Hall. And Cassia Hall is looking for Lee, not just for what he can bring in a basketball perspective, but from just an overall leadership ability. So it's very interesting to me as I talked to him the other day. I remember first interviewing him back on December 10th, 1985, when he was a sophomore at Rogers, 15-year-old sophomore. And here we are 36 or 37 years later, and he's back on the high school scene. So I'm excited to see what he can do. Cassia Hall has a really good basketball tradition. They've been a little bit down in recent years, but their last state title was in 2009, last state tournament in 2012. So he's got some work to do, but again, a great foundation has been laid there by Brian Riley and Danny Hightower, who's retiring. Mm-hmm. And as he says, he will look to build on it. So whenever you have the Mayberry name, that's going to get attention, as not every high school is going to have a 7-year NBA veteran, one of the greats in Arkansas basketball history. And something else I did ask him about, because his youngest daughter has been playing for Booker T. Washington, and so she will remain at Booker T. Washington. So anyone thinking, well, she might come along to Cassia Hall, that's not the case, because the Mayberrys have a tradition. I think she'll be the fourth of the Mayberry daughters to graduate from Booker T. when that time comes. So she's going to stay at Booker T. while Lee coaches at Cassia Hall.
Have you talked with him much over the years, Barry? I mean, you referenced your 85 interview. Just over the years, have you gotten to know him much? I'm curious what we all know his basketball accomplishments. What's he like as a guy?
No, I talked with him a whole lot for his last 3 years at Rogers, but the only time I really had a chance to talk with him, I mean, I would see him out and about, of course, at games with his large family. They always have a large support system for one of his daughters plays, whether it's college or high school level. But the only time I interviewed him after his high school days was it was during his NBA career, and he came here for an exhibition game. I had a good interview with him back in the 90s. So it's been a while. So it was really good to catch up with Lee the other day. And after all, it's not every day I get a chance to interview someone in 2022 that I interviewed back in 1985.
Did you reference that 85 interview with him?
I did. I did.
Okay. Did he remember?
I don't think he remembered specifically that moment, because I talked with him a lot of times in his high school career. But that moment back in the old Rogers gym, and he led them to an overtime victory that night over East Central.
So, speaking of local college legends taking over metro area programs, Lou Dawkins is the new Muskogee coach. We wrote about that, a week or so ago,
Yes.
Barry? Your thoughts on that hire?
Well, again, what a great hire. Uh, Lou Dawkins, of course. I mean, he's got a great name. He hit the most iconic shot, arguably, in University of Tulsa basketball history, the three-pointer that ensured the win over OSU in the first Sweet 16 trip in '94. So if that wasn't enough, you've got, but he's also someone who's had a great level of success at the high school level, albeit not in Oklahoma, back in his hometown of Saginaw, Michigan, where he won a couple of state championships before going the college assistant coaching route at Saginaw. He coached Draymond Green. So taught Draymond all he knows. So, but obviously laid a great foundation for what a career Draymond Green's had. And those Saginaw teams were ranked in the top 25 nationally each of the years he won state championships. And so he's and then he coached about a decade at the major college level, and he's been in Muskogee the last 3 years. And now it just seems a very smooth fit for him to be elevated to head coach when Linwood Wade stepped down to focus on his family's administrative duties.
Sure. So more news on the basketball front, Barry. Booker T. Washington duo Aaron Potter and Cam Parker both went the JUCO route, which any other year they would probably go Division I after the success they had and all that. And you and I have talked about this before. It's kind of the transfer portal versus extra COVID year. Do you think once the COVID year is done, things like this may not happen, or is this more of a transfer portal kind of thing, and this is just reality, and this kind of stuff's going to happen?
I don't know if it'll ever get back completely to normal, like as of like it used to be like 3 or 4 years ago. But I think once the COVID eligibility passes, the extra COVID eligibility passes, I think things will loosen up a little bit. Yes, I mean, it's really surprising to see players of that caliber not being able to get a major college shot right away. I think they eventually will, but that's the way things are going these days. So instead of playing in the major college level next year, they'll be playing in the Jayhawk Conference in Kansas, a really good conference. They'll be playing against each other. So yeah, that'd be a fun game to watch those two go at it. Although as Cam said yesterday when I was at the signing ceremony, they played against each other all their life, well, except the past year. In fact, Cam's last game as a junior was against Aaron in a playoff game when Aaron was at Owasso. So I think both of them are going to eventually wind up at a major college level. They're just too good not to get that chance eventually, assuming they put in the work, which I think they will. They both have a really strong work ethic, and they're going to make the most of it. As they said for my story, that they were initially disappointed, obviously, sort of mad, but they're going to make the most of it. They've come to terms with it, and they're going to work to get stronger and better.
I mean, I read your story, Barry, and I appreciate the fact that they did say, hey, yeah, we were disappointed, but it seems just from reading your story that they've, I don't know if come to terms with it is the right way to say, but it seems like they took it in stride. They're going to just go the road. It is
what it is, I think, is sort of what just the general mindset was them is, that's just what they're going to have to go with. And it's a little detour in where they want to get to, but I think in the long run, hopefully it'll make them better players in the long run. So when they get the major college chance, they'll be ready to take off and run with it.
Did you ask him what was there any chance of maybe last minute landing at a local school? I mean, I know the local schools have had a few years to look at these kids, but even in the last, up until they signed, was there any chance they might wind up at OSU or OU or TU? Or ORU?
I did not ask them specifically about that. I was just assuming, since they had waited several weeks after the signing date, as a lot of people did, very few people signed when the signing period opened, that because they were waiting for spots to open up. And so
your phone never stops ringing. Yeah, it's always on.
Exactly. He's just been a meeting with me where I had like 4 calls during that.
Yeah.
So anyway, um, I think they pretty well felt that they exhausted all opportunities. They waited. They didn't sign right away when the signing period started, and that just nothing was going to open up. So
Yeah.
I think they waited as long as they could. At some point, you've got to make the decision, and because everyone's got to move on. I mean, JUCOs have they've got plans to make too.
Yeah.
100%. You don't want to lose out in the game of musical chairs.
Yeah. And then also, as we find out on Twitter yesterday, Bixby standout Parker Friedrichsen has decommitted from OSU. And when he committed to OSU, you and I talked about it, and you even said then we'll see if he ends up there. Not that he still can't, but your thoughts on seeing that on Twitter yesterday?
I was really surprised it happened so quickly because it wasn't that long ago that he committed to Oklahoma State. But I remember, saying when he committed to Oklahoma State, not just talking specifically about him, but I think you may have asked me, what did I think about his commitment to OSU? And I think I said at the time that, it'd be a great get for OSU, but I really don't get too excited about commitments by juniors because there's such a long time. And I say this about football too at this time of the year. Don't really get carried away too much with them because no matter what the individual, so much can happen on both ends, whether it's the individual or the college. So there's a long time between now and signing date. So I don't really, when commitments are made, I think I said at the time, like no matter who you're talking about, what school or what individual you're talking about, half of those early commitments aren't going to end up with the student athlete actually playing for that university, even when they're made that early.
Yeah. So kind of staying on the same theme, Barry, former Booker T. Washington standout J.J. Hester has announced he's going to leave Missouri and go to the Sooners. And he's, I feel like we have so many good football players in this area year to year. At least I sort of kind of quickly forget about them if they leave the area. And then sometimes if they come back, you're like, oh yeah, that kid for sure. That's kind of how I felt when I saw the Twitter post from JJ. I'm like, oh yeah, of course. Your thoughts on him coming in state?
Well, it'll be exciting to see what he can do at OU. I remember at Booker T, I thought he would have been a great fit at OU when he was playing at Booker T. I mean, I thought he was that good. I mean, there's some players. When you look at his career, nothing against Gentry Williams, because who's an outstanding athlete, and hopefully he'll have a lot of success at OU. He's having a great track season, by the way. But as far as what they did from a football career standpoint, there's no comparison between J.J. Hester and Gentry Williams. J.J. Hester had an outstanding career. Booker T. Washington helped them win a state title. And so I can see him fitting in really well at OU.
Yeah.
And hopefully Gentry will too. That'd be a great story.
Yeah. Always exciting to see the former local stars do well at the next level. That's a lot of fun. All right. Well, Barry, unless there's anything else, unless there's another transfer or another commit or somebody we left out, let's call that good for this week. How about you and I take off next week, because we'll both be busy with PGA. You more so than me. You'll actually be on the grounds, as will be the whole staff, sports staff. So let's take off next week, and we'll catch up the week following. Although I'll throw out one more thing though. All World Awards tickets are on sale. That of course is August 2nd. I have the date right, Barry? August 2nd. Yeah. Rod Thompson is our keynote speaker. Of course, our generous sponsor is Bill Knight Automotive. And get your tickets now, allworldawards.com, August 2nd. It's our annual show. It's always fun, honoring high school kids. One of the best things we do. So I'll throw that out there. Barry, we'll talk in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right.